All right. Hi, everyone. It's 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today, we are doing a continuation of one of our other sessions, which is Preemption, Why Do We Need It? Part 2 with Chief Jackie Gibbs. And, today we're going to go over some more in-depth questions. The last time we sort of talked a lot about benefits and things like that. We're going to go over, Jackie's going to walk us through a live run that was done in Marietta and explain the technology in action. And we're also going to go and talk a little bit about the connected vehicle aspects behind emergency vehicle preemption. So welcome, Jackie. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Good to be back. Glad to be here and looking forward to talking to everybody today.
Perfect. So there were a number of questions that we didn't get to go through last time that I really wanted to go through this time. And the first one is kind of an important one because it's a lot of the stuff that we hear as traffic people. But there's a lot of people in the traffic engineering profession that are against emergency vehicle preemption because in their opinion, emergency vehicle preemption adversely affects traffic. It causes the traffic controllers to not be in sync with each other. What would you say to someone who's got that kind of opinion? How would you, help educate them in your experience?
Well, I think that is something that I would encourage traffic engineers to rethink. One of probably the most important thing to do is get with the fire department and go on an emergency run. I think most people, once you see a fire truck actually go through the traffic situation, run an emergency, you can appreciate and begin to understand the basis of my belief. And my belief is a traffic engineer wants to smooth the flow of traffic. We spend millions of dollars trying to move traffic through our communities in a safe and effective manner. And using a system like Preemption, where it is GPS based and where it knows where the vehicle is and can restore itself, I think you see pretty quickly that it actually smooths the traffic flow during an emergency situation. Emergency calls are going to happen. They're going to happen in every community. Fire trucks are going to be needing to get through the traffic. They are going to run emergency. And when they do, you can visualize it like a shock wave, where all the traffic has to go out and they have to wait until the fire truck gets through, and then all the traffic has to get back into pattern. Whereas with a preemption system, it can smooth that flow out, hold the traffic in an organized manner, let the fire truck move quickly through that particular area. Once that fire truck clears that traffic signal, that signal is going to immediately go back into its cycle, and then the traffic is going to restore back to its original flow pattern in an effective way. Leaving traffic to its own devices as that fire truck tries to get through and people going every which way, trying to do what they should do, which is to get out of the way of the fire truck, let them get through. The whole idea is to get the emergency help to the folks that need help as quick as we can, and just letting them go everywhere. A lot of people, for whatever reason, don't remember their guidance from traffic school, and they don't remember their test they took to take get their driver's license, that they're supposed to pull to the right. And every fire apparatus operator I know of will tell you that they will do the most frightening and craziest thing right in front of a fire truck you've ever seen. So using the traffic signal system, using this technology, using the ability to control that flow of traffic, give the fire truck the green lights, flush that traffic out of their way. Once they even realize the fire truck is there, they can safely move out of the way of an emergency vehicle, holding all of that other traffic, letting that fire truck get through the intersection, get on its way in an efficient manner, and then restoring the flow of traffic where you haven't disrupted the flow of traffic. People on the side streets and coming into the intersections that are stopped don't know why they're stopped. All they know is they have a red traffic signal and they stop. It's something they do all the time. So they really think less of it because they're just stopped at a red signal. Whereas people that are approaching a green light and suddenly see the traffic bowing up and stopping in front of them are not realizing, because they can't hear it, a fire truck or an emergency vehicle coming from one of the side streets, they really don't have a chance to respond, and then they either slam on the brakes or they try to get on through the intersection and outrun the fire truck, which is the worst scenario. Actually creates a worse situation. Also, it's been my experience in talking honestly with people that I know, everyone gets that little bit of a pinch in their stomach when they realize they're missing their turn. So if their light is green and they suddenly have to stop for an emergency vehicle, whether we want to admit it or not, we're all a little bit, I'm missing my opportunity to go. And so they stop. They do stop. We have good citizens, but at the same time, they're doing something that the traffic is sort of counter to what the traffic system is telling them to do. So I would encourage any traffic professional, take the opportunity, visit with emergency responders, talk to them, and go ride with them and see what happens in front of that fire apparatus as they're trying to get through the traffic in an emergency situation. I think a lot of them would really have their eyes wide open from that perspective. Everyone's seen the fire truck go through. You've seen a fire truck run emergency, so you've watched them go through your streets. But seeing it from in the cab of a fire truck is a very different perspective. That anyone that believes that this is worse for traffic and doesn't improve traffic, I think could have an eye-opening experience by simply riding with a fire truck and riding in that fire truck when they run emergency. Yeah, it takes a little time to do it, but I think it's worthwhile. And I think once you see a preemption system operate and you see the smoothing of the flow, and then you can watch that system return very quickly, I think you pretty much agree that the disruption is significantly less when you use a preemption system.
There was one thing that came from the last conversation that we had, which was, you said often when you got control of an intersection, the intersection was negative, it was red, you would go in there and someone would see someone stop but didn't know there was a fire truck in there, and he would go around and he would hit you.
That happened.
What happens to traffic then?
Well, as you can imagine, a fire truck sitting dead in the middle of an intersection with a Lincoln Navigator pinned up underneath the bumper, you can imagine what happens to the traffic then. It's all at a standstill. We had a major intersection completely shut down. We had the disruption of, we had to dispatch additional units to go on the emergency. Plus we tied up all of the law enforcement resources that it takes to manage a vehicle crash in the middle of a major intersection. This was a big intersection during a busy time of the day. So you can, especially the traffic engineers here are sitting doing the math in their head about how fast and how big the traffic tie-up was, because that fire truck was struck in the middle of an intersection. It was a huge mess. Not only the loss of the fire apparatus, because they had to take it to the shop and get it repaired, plus thankfully no one was injured, but that actually happens, and it happens more times than we like to think about, where somebody just simply is not paying attention, in a hurry probably, and can't figure out why the traffic is stopping. It sneaks up on you, and anybody that's driven a lot will, I think, can think of times that it happened to them in their mind where they were approaching a green light and suddenly traffic stopped and they didn't know why, and they had to stop pretty quickly. And then you realize, oh, it's an emergency vehicle, police, a fire, ambulance, or something trying to get through the intersection, and that your light was green, and all of a sudden traffic started stopping. So it's something you're not really ready for. Even a defensive driver is not ready for sometimes.
And there's definitely a misconception right now of, traffic, because the traffic controllers, maybe that was 30 years ago when traffic controllers struggled to get back into synchronization. When now the modern day traffic signal controllers, from all of the different suppliers are able to get back into sync much, much quicker. And the one other aspect that I've noticed is with the old Opticom Preemption, you used to drive through an intersection and the emergency vehicle would go through and the rest of the traffic would wait there for another 15 seconds before it released the traffic. Whereas now with what they have in Marietta and many other cities, when the vehicle's 30 feet past that intersection, then it lets everything go. So everybody sees the emergency vehicle go through and then their lights go green. And I think from a consumer point of view, public's point of view, they understand it a lot more than, and they're not quite as frustrated of lost time.
Well, and I think that's one of the things to always keep in mind. Technology around all of us in every facet of this is moving at such a pace that whatever we thought in the past, it's always a good idea to rethink that and relook at it with a fresh set of eyes, because what we thought we used to know about cell phones is completely different now. Every time you have the good fortune to break your cell phone and you go get a new one, the technology has changed so much. You have to relearn how to use the silly thing, and you find all of these new things that it does. The same is true in traffic. In every facet of our lives, we have to remember, things have changed, and always look at it with that fresh perspective and sort of a clean screen before you make any prejudgments about how something worked based on a preconceived notion of something out of the past. So I think that's true for pretty much all of our industries, whether it's fire or traffic or anything else. We all need to rethink how we do our jobs simply because our technology has changed so much.
All right, I want to change tracks a little bit on when you guys were doing your project in Marietta. What would you say was one of your biggest obstacles to overcome in implementing the system, and what strategy did you use to overcome that?
Well, with any new system like this, it's an education. It's an education not only for the department head that's pressing this idea or this technology, because you have to go get funding. You have to convince city fathers that this is worth investing in, because it takes money to do all of these sorts of things. The other piece of that is not only we have to educate ourselves and then the budget writers and the city fathers, but we had to educate our personnel, the people that work within our organization, because it was new. It had advanced so much that it takes a full commitment to actually go in and teach everyone how the system actually works, how to operate it, build that confidence level, and not only sell it to the city, but we had to sell it within the department as well. So it was a great partnership between the fire department and the traffic managers, with our traffic engineer really was really the lead. I mean, our particular person was just fantastic as far as helping write up the justification and making that work through our system, so that we were able to just come alongside the traffic department and hold hands with them in the days before social distancing and get that through our budget process. So for us, we were very, very fortunate to have that come along with our traffic department in the lead from that standpoint.
Why do you think the traffic department was so interested in this system?
Well, they really saw the benefit to the traffic department to get that communication with their traffic cabinets. And I think the other thing that was big for our city administration was the enhancement of the management of the traffic system. You can do so many more things. You can have a full window of operation of your traffic system, so that you know what your system's doing at all times. What your traffic system's doing, of any issues that you have that are out there from a maintenance perspective. And then you also get all of these benefits for preemption for emergency vehicles. So getting the communication to those areas of the city where they didn't have fiber saved tons of money for the city, because they got communication to those traffic cabinets that they didn't have fiber in, and then they were able to know what the system's doing all the time. And I think that was one of the big benefits for our traffic department, was having that connectivity so that at any hour of the day or night, they knew what the system was doing. I think city administrators, a lot of times, we forget the number of calls that they get from the public when the traffic system or one of the signals is on the fritz. There's been some issue with it. You either have to hear it from a citizen, which no city manager likes to get those calls, or the police department rolls up on it or gets a call on one that the signal's having trouble. And so I think a lot of the benefit came from situational awareness of your traffic system and of your city and the traffic that's moving was a big plus. And then you look at the preemption for the fire service. From our perspective, we couldn't afford direct fire trucks. We just simply can't afford that. And so having preemption that helped us clear those intersections gave us the assurance that emergency vehicles were getting a green light and that all the other traffic was brought to a stop safely. Just the improvement in safety to the public and to our fire personnel was huge in the eyes of our city administrators and budget writers, because I mean, they saw the real numbers when a fire truck gets hit. Now, we didn't have very many accidents, but when we did, it's a big deal. It costs an awful lot of money to repair fire trucks, and then the risk to the public. A person driving a car that gets involved with a vehicle the size of a fire truck, oftentimes they're injured or worse. And so having that liability reduced on the city was very important, and just the huge improvement in safety. And again, for anybody that's a traffic manager that's never had the opportunity to ride in an emergency vehicle and see the kinds of challenges they're faced with in modern traffic, I strongly encourage you to do that. Because it's a dangerous business running emergency in a fire truck, and it's one area where a fire chief can make a huge impact on community risk reduction, is to have a preemption system, reduce the liability for the fire department and improve public safety, plus the added benefit of a faster response time and more information feeding back for your decision makers. It's a big deal, and it helps you do your job.
So based on your experience of how the system works, what would you say to one of your peers in another fire department who isn't really seriously considering the technology? What would your recommendations to him be?
Well, I wanted to look at my notes, because it's just a reminder. Sometimes we do our jobs day in and day out, and we know it's dangerous, but we forget about the real negative impact on our people. And if you just glance back at the National Fire Protection Association survey of fire departments, and they do this every year, and the reports come out, and sometimes it's easy to let them get by you. And you don't focus in on, how many people are hurt. In 2018, NFPA reported 14,425 collisions of fire department apparatus. That's a huge number of accidents in 1 year. And in those accidents, fire departments reported 525 firefighter injuries. Now, that's a huge number. In my mind, those are preventable accidents. If you wreck a fire truck, that's pretty much a preventable accident. And to be able to eliminate that kind of damage to your fire apparatus and to our personnel and to the public makes preemption a worthwhile thing. In 2018, 12 firefighters were killed in line of duty crashes, which represented 19% of the total number of firefighter fatalities in the country. And vehicle crashes were the number 2 on the nature of injury causes. So if you look at all of the things that hurt firefighters in the line of duty, and what was the nature of their injury. And the number 2 is a vehicle crash or impact by a vehicle. That brings this to the top of the list as far as I'm concerned, in things that we should be focused on to improve the lives of our personnel. Most everybody understands number 1 is health and wellness because of overexertion and that sort of thing of firefighters. But if number 2 nature of injury causes those vehicle crashes, I think investment in traffic technology is a solid decision to report back to your city management or county management and say, we want to do something about this. These are the risks that we're out here taking. This is an investment that we can make in taxpayer money, and it's going to have a dramatic and impressive impact on the job that we do every day and on the health and wellness of our personnel and the public we serve. I think out of all the things that we have on the list to spend our money on, we really should focus on the top things that we can do to improve health and wellness of our personnel and reduce the number of fatalities and injuries of our personnel.
When you talk about costs, I mean, I've got no idea what it costs for. I have some ideas on apparatus and those kinds of things, but building a new fire station, having a preemption system put in, where does it rank up in cost with the department in terms of the actual physical costs that they've got to outlay?
Well, we spend an awful lot of money providing fire services in our communities, but the cost of a fire station, of course, is huge, depending on the size of the station, the cost of the land and all that development. And as a fire chief, you're focused on trying to invest the taxpayers' money the best way you can to provide a high level of service. So if you can put in a preemption system, which is going to cost a tiny fraction of a fire station or a tiny fraction of replacement vehicles and additional crews, you can improve your response time and in a big way. And if not put off, maybe eliminate the need for an additional fire station or eliminate the need for additional quick response vehicles or additional personnel. That's a major impact on the city or the county's financial health. So there are, if we can do things to get through traffic, provide that emergency service in a faster, more effective way, and do it safer, that's a plus for our communities. So to me, if you're able to use that now, as communities grow, expand, annexation, this sort of thing, you're going to eventually have to build a fire station. There's no doubt about that. But if you can use a preemption system, get the benefits of the improvement of safety, plus push down the road that investment in a fire station, give yourself more time to be certain where you want to put a fire station, but at the same time improve the safety and health of your personnel. I think it's a pretty easy decision, really, as far as the cost effectiveness to the taxpayer. So I think it's a tiny fraction of an investment in a preemption system versus all of those other things.
Perfect. I'm going to go and jump on and start a video that I'd love for you to talk through and talk through what it's like being in an emergency vehicle.
Okay, Peter, if you would, let's just stop right here just a second. And just to give the audience a little bit of a lead in on what you're going to see here. This particular video was shot at Marietta Fire Station 54, which is out just off Powder Springs Road and Chestnut Hill Road. We are using in this scenario a test box, which actually opens up the preemption system and gives us the preempt signal. but the fire truck is not physically running emergency. They're not running red lights and siren as we go through this. And the difference is we move through it, you're going to see the traffic start to flush out of the way, which is exactly what you want when you're driving that fire truck. But you would, just so you know why some of the cars that are running along in the right lane don't pull over, and that's because they don't even know that they're just driving down the street because the fire truck is not running emergency. As they come down the ramp in this particular fire station, as you get to the end of the ramp is a collector street, and it's a fairly busy street, and they have to turn left, and they're immediately faced with a traffic signal on a major road that you're going to see as we go on into it. That's 4 lanes of travel in both directions, and then you have turn lanes adding to that. And this is a busy road, and one of our issues, and you'll see why we really wanted preemption, because they're able to get through the traffic in a much more efficient way. Also, this street is streetscaped, which for most everybody, you realize that creates a whole new set of problems because you've got tree-lined medians and heavy curbs with walking trails or sidewalks on the side of them. So there's no place for the traffic to go, and we'll talk about that as we go. So if you'll go ahead and let us get on up there to the traffic signal. Okay, he uses the lights to get out into the intersection, and then he's going to turn them off. All right, so here's this first major intersection. Okay, Peter, if you just hold up right there. All right, you can see that there are 2 travel lanes in each direction, and then there are turn lanes, left and right turn lanes. So daily condition during busy times, most oftentimes this traffic is stacked completely up. So as that fire truck comes out, that's a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit on that roadway. So the ability to bring that traffic to a safe halt when you are 5 or 6 cars back from the traffic light, trying to use your siren, air horns, and red lights, whereas the traffic that is coming at you where the white sedan is there, they can't even see you. When you're 5 or 6 cars back on that collector street, and they won't even hear the siren until they're already in the intersection. So getting the fire truck out into this main road was a huge problem. Putting in the preemption system, before they get to the bottom of the ramp, that light is green, that collector street is flushed, and the major street in both directions is stopped. And so the fire truck can just come down the ramp, make sure they've got a clear path into the collector street, and they are right out into the main road and on to their emergency calls. So this first particular traffic signal was a huge improvement by putting preemption on that signal. Okay, let's go ahead and go on down the street. Also, your pedestrians are stopped, as you can see the guy standing. And again, now we're not running red lights and siren here. We're just going to use the preemption system. And this next intersection is another major intersection. Okay, Peter, if you'll hold up. And you'll see that as we move on past this, this is another big intersection with 2 lanes of traffic coming in from both right and left. And then in front of you is a turn lane, and then 2 lanes coming past the fire truck. So you can see that people would be trying to turn in front of the emergency vehicle, and you've got side streets with turn lanes where they could come from your right and turn right on red and be out in front of you before they even realized you were there. You'll notice in the windshield there, the lights are green, and the turn lane is also green. So we've flushed all of the traffic out of the way, and if this really were an emergency call, most of those others to your right would be pulling to the right to let the fire truck go on through. So, okay, Peter, you'll see the amount of traffic as the fire truck comes on by on your left here. You're going to see the kind of stack that you held in place there so that you could get on down the road. Again, we're just moving on through that. You're going to see the road is flushed in front of you. The traffic coming to you is held. All right, stop. All right, all of that traffic is held safely. That gives them time to look up and see, okay, I've got a red light, but I also got a fire truck coming at me. And so those folks can remain right where they are if the fire truck needs to go left or right, they would be able to immediately do that without any traffic worries of somebody getting up beside them or turning out in front of them. They'd have to be running a red light to do that. And so this gives you another indication of just how good the preemption is, and flushing that traffic out and getting them out of the way, holding your other traffic safely until the fire truck can get past. Okay. Again, we were actually running emergency. That brown sedan would probably be pulled over right now and wouldn't be racing the fire truck. But as far as he knows, we're all just going together. Another traffic light here is holding all of that traffic. It's also some road construction going on there. So that gives you plenty of opportunity to see where the traffic is held in a red condition on the opposing lanes, and you've still got green lights so the fire truck can actually advance right where they need to go.
And that's also a key one. If we saw there, we were actually driving around a corner where the older optical style or radio style only
simply would not work. And that was the other, one of the things I meant to mention. Thank you for reminding me. Our traffic folks they were just great team players all along, but the older systems were constantly out of adjustment. The system was not reliable because it did use the light emitters, and it was a constant problem. So it was not reliable. So if you were driving the fire truck, you never really knew if the thing was going to work or not. With this system, you have the great confidence that the system's going to work. And if you're driving that fire truck, you know what to expect as you're coming up on it. We always train our drivers to drive the lights and drive the traffic. We want them to focus in on actually what they see, but it doesn't take long for you to gain great confidence that you're going to have a green light, that everybody else is going to be red, and you're going to have a safer response. And that is around corners, buildings, or anything else. You can see the traffic was stacked up there, and that was just because the light was held and the road construction. A lot of people, will get in that road construction area and they get frustrated and they'll jump over in a turn lane and try to, if a light happens to give them a turn light in front of them, they'll take off, whereas they'd be held red even on those turn lights, and we'd be able to get through there with the fire truck. So it made a huge difference in that corridor for improvement.
And then this next thing is something we're going to talk about in just a second.
Okay, good deal. Yep.
Emergency vehicle approaching from behind.
And that connected vehicle piece is very exciting improvement for the fire department as far as emergency response goes.
Yeah, so we got a message over there, emergency vehicle approaching from behind. And I know, this is one of those things that you mentioned a couple of times is, the cars are so well insulated these days that people just don't know where the emergency vehicle is coming from. Often they just don't hear it, but also the sound, you can't determine, is it coming from the right, the left, the front, the back? It's very difficult. And with that message that we were showing over there, what's your view on this?
Well, I'm very excited about it. And sometimes I'm old school. I spent my time in the fire service back in the day and retired. And so for me, the technology sometimes sneaks up on me. And there may be a lot of people out there that are in that same boat. And you just fail to realize how dependent we've become on our technology when we're driving our cars. It amazes me the more, when you talk to people and you're around folks and ask them about that, how reliant we've become on our mapping systems and on our phones to communicate as we drive down the road, to the point that many of our states have had to pass hands-free laws and all of these things to keep us off the phone, to keep us from texting and driving and all of that sort of thing. The beauty of the travel safely system is it gives the fire department the opportunity to communicate with the public and tell them, hey, we're coming. We're running emergency. You need to pay attention. And oh, by the way, we're coming from behind you. We're coming from your right. or we're coming from your left. And with the glance technology, it makes it really, really cool because you get that audible alert. You don't have to take your hands off the wheel. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to, your phone's just up there in the cradle where I hope it is all the time, because you shouldn't be driving with it in your hands. And you get an audible alert that's going to interrupt what you're doing in your car and tell you that there is an emergency vehicle. I think sometimes we in the fire service, we don't realize the opportunities we have sometimes to give back to the public and to offer the public something that they can use in their daily life to improve their life. And this is a great feature that, we were able to talk about in the city and tell folks, hey, download the Travel Safely app. It's provided for you free of charge. It goes on your phone. It will put you in touch with the traffic management system, with the traffic signals. So not only do you get that emergency vehicle alerts, but you also know what's going on with the traffic signals. It tells you that, the light is about to turn green. It tells you to get ready for green is what it comes on and says, so that you can kind of wake up, pay attention, and help move on through. For traffic engineers, I'm certain it's all about traffic flow. I am no traffic engineer, but I'm certain they're convinced and concern themselves with the flow of traffic, because it's when you stop and start that traffic and that lag time as traffic moves, it creates, slower traffic. The more people there are, the more lag time. So with the Travel Safely app, you get to communicate, you get information from your traffic system, you get information from your fire department. And for a taxpayer, getting something back from the local government is always a plus. People really respond to that. Elected officials respond to it. They like to be able to tell the public, these are things we've done for you. And having the Travel Safely app to remind you, hey, you're speeding in a school zone, that wakes people up. We always are concerned with, somebody driving through a school zone too fast, because, we all love our kids and we don't want to see our child get run over by somebody that's not paying attention. So the Travel Safely app would warn somebody. Many local government officials have spent a lot of money on driver feedback signs because they want people to slow down in those slow zones in neighborhoods. And so through the Travel Safely app, people in government can remind folks, hey, you're speeding in a neighborhood, because your Travel Safely app is going to alert you that you're speeding in a slow zone. And that's the reason we put it. People that live in these neighborhoods, they don't want people cutting through their neighborhood at a high rate of speed. They want people to drive safely. And so they've asked for these driver feedback signs. And what better way to even more alert citizens that they're driving is to give them the Travel Safely app. They have the driver feedback signs. They get an alert. Hey, slow down. And people will slow down. It wakes you up that you're driving. Or if you're in a school zone, it wakes you up that, oh, school's in session, and I need to slow down. Or, from the fire department's perspective, you got a fire truck approaching from the right. You need to stop. It gives you that extra warning that you don't have to take your hands off the wheel. You don't have to do anything. It comes to you audibly.
And how does that, also affect you were talking about the council members, the mayor, and all the rest. How does that also help them, sell this to the community? Because, obviously there's money that needs to go to different places. I mean, being an app that the community understands, how does that help them, versus just purely, hey, we're trying to get green lights for emergency vehicles?
And I think it helps them because it gives them something, like I say, to give back to the public. I mean, the public sees a benefit that they receive personally. You get, oftentimes, the government is involved in tons of things, and sometimes they're out of sight, out of mind. When the pavement's going good, you get a lot of road projects paved, or you get, new streetscapes. People see them, but they don't really connect to it. that audible alert, the app on your phone, that's something that you can have in your car all the time. And it reminds the public every time they drive their car of a benefit that the local government gives back to them, something that they're provided that they can actually use. And it's kind of interesting that even though I'm not necessarily personally a technology person as much as I should be probably, it's just a really neat app that, you find yourself really, if you're in an area that it doesn't have travel safely, you miss it, or I do. I miss it because before I can even see the traffic signal over the hill, I know if it's red, I know if it's green, I know if it's about to turn green, even before I can even see the traffic signal. So it's just some really, really neat technology, just like our mapping systems, to help us get around. It's just one more thing to help you get around in the community. So I find it really neat and really, really fun to have, running there on the dash. The other thing I really like about the Travel Safely app, people have these brand new cars that are connected vehicles and all of this sort of thing, and they got all this technology. Well, I can have traffic technology in my 1974 Chevrolet pickup truck because I can put my phone up there on the dash in the cradle, and I can drive my old Chevrolet truck around Marietta anywhere I want to go, and I've got connected vehicle technology right there in my old 74 Chevrolet truck. So you don't have to go buy a new car. You just have to convince your community to put in a glance system, and you'll get the Travel Safely app right along with it. You can have it in your old truck too.
And I suppose that gets the traffic department also quite excited and everybody else excited.
I hope so, because it is really something that you'll find once you have it. It's one of those things. Once you have it, you sure miss it if you don't have it. So it's pretty neat.
So your successor at the City of Marietta has said to his firefighters and his officers that the glance preemption system is as vital a piece of equipment to them as their breathing apparatus, and thus should be treated as such, meaning that if it isn't working for them, they need to immediately report it to the chain of command. So that, I know there's very, very many vital pieces, firefighting equipment, but, why do you think he classifies this system falling into that category?
Well, and I think, I guess the easiest way is he gets it. All you have to do is look back to the number of vehicle crashes that we in the fire service experience annually. Look at the number of firefighters that have been injured. Look at the number of firefighters that have been killed in vehicle crashes in the United States in 1 year's time. It's just not acceptable. If that kind of failure rate was in almost any other system, it's just not acceptable. We have the technology to make a huge difference for our personnel and for the public. And every firefighter that has this type of technology soon learns how important this is, because you just see the improvement in your response. When you're driving a fire truck, you know the call you're going on. You know the type of response that you're making. You hear that radio traffic, you have a child choking, a child not breathing, person down not breathing, a heart attack, or you got a working structure fire with victims trapped on the second floor. Every fire apparatus operator, I don't care how many calls you've been on, that's serious in your mind when you get behind the wheel of that fire truck. Once a apparatus operator has this technology and sees the difference, they know that they're able to, okay, I can relax. I'm going to have green lights. I'm not going to be stuck behind 15 or 20 cars on a streetscape with a tree-lined median and a high curb on the right, where I can't get people out of the way. And that could be, that is somebody's child that's not breathing. That tenses you up, knowing you're going to have the traffic flushed out of the way. You can focus in on where you're going, how you're going to get there, and then what you need to do when you get on the scene really brings down the level of stress in the fire truck and gives everybody the confidence we're going to be able to get there, we're going to be able to do our job, and we're going to make a positive difference in somebody's life. I don't know a single person in the fire service that's ever run those type of calls that can appreciate how much improvement that's going to make in responding to that call, getting to those people, and getting your job done in a professional way. It just makes a huge difference in the feeling that you have, the ability to deliver the service.
Probably the stress as well for the driver. I can just imagine the stress levels.
The stress levels are greatly reduced simply because you know the system's going to work and you're not going to be stuck behind traffic. On the big intersections we showed you in the original video there, you could easily see where on a busy time without a preemption system, where the fire truck could be 10 or 12 cars back deep into the traffic pattern. People coming right and left couldn't hear the fire truck, wouldn't even know to begin to stop. And then if the fire apparatus operator was aggressive with the siren and with the air horns, you could actually cause a person in a car to push their way out into an intersection and be struck. And that's just nowhere we should be. We should never be causing accidents when we're trying to respond to emergency. Having the glance system reduces all of that stress because you know those cars are going to move. You know it. If they're not moving when you first see them, they're going to be moving pretty quickly because they're going to see a green light. Even in many cases, before they even hear the siren, before they even know you're back there, they're going to just see a green light and they're going to start to move out of your way. By the time they do hear the siren, they've got room and they can get over out of your way and let you proceed on. So it makes a big difference.
Now, earlier we talked about the partnership with traffic and the fire department. And you were telling me a little bit about Marietta has a monitoring meeting.
Right.
Do you want to explain what that meeting's about and how it helps everyone?
Well, I think it's a very innovative meeting because it brings the traffic department, the fleet management department, the information technology department, even the electrical department, together with the fire department. Used to be in a room, now it's using some computer technology. But they meet monthly to look at the system health, look at how things are operating, from everything from the way the fire trucks are operating to the way the traffic system is operating, and look for any improvements that need to be made, anything that's not working right, an antenna or anything like that. And that meeting takes place every month, and we look at the call volume. You look at the number of intersections that fire trucks went through, look at their response times, you look at how far they've traveled, their maximum speed during their emergency response. So there's lots of feedback that comes to the fire chief through that monitoring meeting on his system's performance. How are his folks doing? What is their actual response time? And it's a quality response time because you know that the response time you get out of the glance system is from the time the fire truck moves until the time the fire truck is on the scene. So there's no more, missed time in there about, well, which part of this call is turnout time and which part of it is response time, because you know what the response time of the vehicle is. Fire chief can get lots and lots of data on their responses through the glance system. There's just lots and lots and lots of data available because the fire truck is followed all the time. We know how fast, we know which way you go. You can play back the call if there's ever an issue with it. So just lots of information. We also learned from the monitoring meetings that on occasion the power system was having some glitches along the power line, and that was causing some of the traffic signals to get in trouble. And so those are the things you learned, that the power company was able to go out and improve the line and fix a major problem that had been extremely hard to identify with one particular signal that kept having a problem. They couldn't figure out what it was, but the glance system was able to show them that it was a blip in the power system was causing the problem. So it's been highly educational for all the participants. Plus it binds you together with your other departments. It gives you that cooperative spirit. So you get an improved fleet, you get improved traffic system, you get improved IT, you get improved fire. I mean, it's a win-win-win for multiple departments within the city.
And every one of the departments is using a bit of the glance system, so they're all seeing some benefit of actually coming together and solving real world problems, as you said.
Absolutely. Every fire chief I know can use the data to improve the delivery of service. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for data. Budget writers, city fathers, they all want data. This gives a fire chief very, very solid, quality information about the responses that they're making at a very high level, a very quality assured level. These are our response times. You can heat map that against your city. You can look at where you're going, how fast you're getting to certain areas of the city, and if there's anything that you can do to improve that by realigning resources, or it just gives you better ability to make quality decisions. And if you have an issue where there is a complaint, you're able to look back at that individual call, see where that fire truck went, how it ran on the map, where they went. You know, if there was an issue of response time, did they make a wrong turn? You know, was there an issue? You can play that back and see exactly what went on, and gives you the opportunity and the ability to defend yourself. If you do happen to get hit in an intersection, the system's going to know the condition of that traffic signal. It's going to know how fast you were going when you approached the signal, when the preemption took place. You're going to learn, you're going to know everything about that response and what the condition of those signals were.
I suppose the drivers know this as well, so that if you've got a policy of not speeding, they know that they're getting tracked as well, which is a big problem with young.
It's absolutely something that it's not Big Brother watching you. It's just a reminder that there are performance expectations and that you need to adhere to department policy. So it gives the chief very much confidence that that folks are adhering to the policy because they have some oversight on it. And it's just an encouragement. I mean, you know, the world has changed. The law enforcement's had to learn about video. Every police officer, who would have thought every police officer is wearing a body camera now? Our world is different, you know, so that's changing for the fire service as well. But we need to embrace the technology and use the technology to improve our system delivery and reduce the number of crashes and death and injury to our personnel and to the public. It's just a responsibility.
I know we've got about 7-8 minutes left, so I want to just put a message out there to everybody. If you've got any questions right now, please type them up, and Jessica can read them out for us here. Because now's your chance to ask Jackie the difficult questions.
Yeah, Peter, we have a couple here. I know we've talked a lot about benefits and, you know, all the things that are available in a preemption system. But Chief Gibbs, if you were talking to a fire chief or an assistant chief responsible for looking at or deciding whether they were going to pursue preemption as a solution, what are the top 2 or 3 benefits you would urge them to consider when selecting the preemption upgrade or their first system?
Well, I think the largest benefit with the newer technology, with the GPS and redundant system like Glance is you want system quality, and that's where, you know, with the redundant communication with cell and DSRC radio, you don't lose connectivity around hills and that sort of thing. So the first thing, you want to make sure the system's going to do what it's supposed to do. And so looking at those things about the quality of the system. The next thing I would say is the improvement in safety can't be overstated. Controlling the intersections, controlling the traffic, bringing the opposing intersections safely to a stop, and flushing the traffic out from in front of the fire truck cannot be overstated. And so I would encourage any chief or assistant chief to visit one of the cities. Contact me. I can put you in touch with cities near you that have the system, and you can actually go see it and use it. And the other thing is just the improvement in your response time. I mean, we're all about delivering emergency services to the public and doing that in a very effective and efficient manner. And you just can't hardly believe the improvement you can make in your response time by using a preemption system.
Thank you. Okay, so we have one more here, and this is in reference to the video that was shown, and it says, I can see that the intersection is already preempted when you get there. What is the distance you are looking to have for a preemption zone? What is a comfortable distance?
That is one of the huge assets with Glance. They have it's an ETA based system, and I'm going to look at sometimes at my traffic engineers over here to make sure I am doing this correctly, but it's ETA based. It knows how fast you're coming. It knows when you're going to get to that traffic signal, and it starts changing that light so that by the time you get there, the traffic is flushed out in front of you. The other huge thing that I failed to mention here, and I'm glad they asked the question, is if that Glance system sees you slow down, sees that fire truck start to not get there in that ETA, it knows that there's traffic in front of you and it needs to cycle faster and get the light changed so that it flushes that traffic out in front of you. So with that GPS-based system, it's an intelligent system, and you can adjust that, and the engineers can work with your traffic folks to adjust that, and it's easily done. I mean, your traffic department can make those adjustments and help improve that travel distance. So the system is very smart, it's intuitive, and it's also responsive to the needs. Once your firefighter engineers or apparatus operators say, hey, we need a little bit more here because of certain conditions, the folks at AI can help adjust that and make it work better for you. So it's very adjustable. It's a very smart system.
And you know, one of the other things, you know, the distances always change. So for instance, here in Alpharetta, they've got a clearance time that they don't truncate. And we've got to put in a preemption call very far in advance, about 40 to 45 seconds in advance, which is a good, you know, 4,000 feet away from the traffic signals. So when you start looking at that, you know, the older style systems,
right,
the optical, which could only do a maximum of about 2,500, and the radios also around 2,500 maximum, it just wouldn't work. So this is the idea of utilizing the cellular communication as well as the redundant backup radio that just makes it far more reliable in all sorts of different kinds of situations. You know, the one area that a lot of the places where you have a fire department, fire station, and it doesn't have line of sight to that first intersection, that you can start preparing that intersection. And then when he's got his left turn indicator on, start preparing the intersection on the left and the next one to start flushing out traffic, so that by the time that emergency vehicle comes there, he's already got a flow of traffic that's already moved away from him.
That's one of that particular thing happened in Marietta. We had an area where it was a very, very busy intersection, and when they made that left-hand turn, they needed that next light to be green. And they just made an adjustment to the system. Now the fire truck gets down to its major intersection, turns left, and when they make that left turn, I heard back from them that, you know, the road was just clear and they had a green light at the hill, and they were just able to go right on through. So it's they can make an amazing difference in the response.
Jessica, any other questions?
That's what I have for now.
Awesome. Well, I'm not going to go through anything else. We've got about only 50 seconds. So I just want to thank you, Jackie, for joining us today. I think getting the information from you with all of your experience driving, you know, and actually implementing these systems is just so valuable for us.
Glad to be here. I enjoyed it.
I want to thank everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Jessica, any other, what are the next sessions available for everybody?
Yep, so everyone should be getting invites. Our next session is applied information, who we are and where we came from. And then we will also be having a data, like reports driven session led by our business developers, Chris and Jeff. If you are not receiving those invites, or you would like a full list of all of our webinars for the rest of this month, just reach out to training@appinfoinc.com and we will get that to you.
And what time is the next session on Tuesday?
It's at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to seeing you the next time. We're going to be having Brian Mulligan on board, who is the president and founder of Applied Information, talking on that next session about where the whole company came from and kind of the vision of where it's all going, where this technology is going. So it's going to be quite interesting to hear about the vision of how everything started, and how we've basically gone and started off with some devices to all of a sudden now going up into the future of what all is going to come out in the future for Applied Information. So thank you very much.